Good morning, it's Tuesday, May 19th, and we're going to continue our discussion on action with the prompt from the Daily Stoic, which is, where am I doing the opposite of what I should? So this prompt comes from a teaching of Epictetus in which he says, that's why the philosophers warn us not to be satisfied with mere learning, but to add practice and then training. For as time passes, we forget what we learned and end up doing the opposite, and hold opinions the opposite of what we should. Now, many people initially confuse training with practice, or they think that they're synonymous, but they aren't. Not in their design and not in their intention. And also, there are a lot of parallels here between mental and physical adaptation and development. So let's first define three distinct phases that I first heard summarized by the CrossFit coach Ben Bergeron, and those phases are practice, training, and competing. So practice in sport is the time when we learn and begin to focus on developing technique. It's usually done with low heart rate, low load, and under low intensity. It's the unsexy stuff, but it's the vitally important step where movement patterns and muscle memory are established. Our level of focus and attention to detail are off the charts here. Repetition in a very controlled environment is essential, and the risk of failure is negligible and actually expected. In sport, this would be the equivalent of hitting the batting cages or working on your foot positions for your rope climbs. Now, training is the next phase of adaptation where we want to increase the intensity somewhat compared to our practice, but we still want to hold on to those mechanics. There's a concept that I like to think of as the speed wobbles. And as you increase the intensity or the speed of a movement, you'll begin reaching a tipping point where technique begins to falter somewhat. And you're dangerously close to being out of control. Now, in training, we want to respect the speed wobbles and we don't want to pass this point. In fact, when you begin to feel the speed wobbles kick in, then you want to bring the intensity down a bit because you haven't earned it yet. Now, I wrote this and then I went into my CrossFit workout this morning and then I totally forgot what I had just told myself to do. And my coach Laura had to bring me back into reality and say, remember those speed wobbles, slow down. But mechanics and consistency have to precede intensity. The risk of failure in training is slightly higher than in practice, but it's not catastrophic. Just think about this as like your 7-on-7 drills in football. Now, competing rarely improves technique. In fact, it can actually make it worse. Here, we're primarily focused on winning, and we may take calculated risks, which may be severe, in order to do so. We're focused on doing whatever it takes in order to win within the confines of the rules of the game, even if it means sacrificing technique. Here, we just want to get it done by whatever means necessary. Now, while we all usually think of only think about competition when thinking about sports, that's because that's the glamorous side. In reality, we should only be focusing around 10% of our time in working on competing, with the rest of the time split evenly between practice and training. Not only is competing too physically and mentally draining to be sustainable with any more frequency, it actually doesn't lead to any real improvement, not over the long term. For that, we must focus our time and efforts on practice and training. And the same can be said for philosophy and its application. In philosophy, our practice comes in the form of study. It's the reading, it's the journaling, it's the discussion and exploration of ideas. It's my morning routine where I immerse myself in the wisdom of others with enough frequency to where I can begin to internalize the concepts and express them on my own. In philosophy, our training comes from the application of these teachings in our daily lives. It's the intentional observation of cause and effect of our principles out in the real world. Things move faster. The risk is slightly higher. It's less controlled. Sometimes we'll mess up, and that's okay. The speed wiles will catch up with us, and in that case, we just need to slow down and go back and practice to work more on our mechanics. Now, as it relates to philosophy, our opportunity to compete comes when life throws us a major curveball. Will we have refined and developed our technique enough through practice and training that we instinctively know how to respond when shit hits the fan? When the intensity is jacked up? Just as in sport, when muscle memory takes over, we want our mental mechanics to do the heavy lifting here too. We also know that we can't last long in this ultra-high stimulation environment, but with the proper time invested in practice and training, we'll be ready when the time comes. Anyways, hope you found that useful. Have a great day.